I'm the executive director of the Cohousing Association of the US. So I'm so happy that you all are here. And I want to begin by acknowledging the land that I'm occupying, along with my forming community and the headquarters of Coho US. So I am on the unceded territory of the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho people. And it is imperative that we recognize the history of the lands that we occupy and build communities upon. The state of our movement, our land-based movement, is deeply intertwined with a fraught history of colonialism and genocide, and we simply can't build a more sustainable and connected future without first acknowledging our past. So I encourage you, by way of an introduction, to also offer an acknowledgement of your own in the chat. If you're not aware of the original inhabitants and stewards of the land that you reside on, we'll offer a link in the chat where you can actually go and find out. Coho US is a national nonprofit that seeks to advance co-housing and shift the culture toward a new American dream where every home is surrounded by caring, collaborative neighbors who use less of the Earth's resources while living an abundant life. Today, we're going to hear from leaders from within the co-housing movement as they share their reflections on the state of our movement. This collection of talks will serve as the opening keynote address for the virtual co-housing conference. So today is, you can think of it as an opening event for a virtual conference. That virtual conference then is a collection of recordings from the national conference that was held in Madison this summer, as well as some new content, including complete versions of interviews that you'll see previews of today. So lots more will be available, and we'll talk about that later on in the call. So this virtual conference will be delivered through our new learning platform. It's called the Cohousing Institute. We're really excited to show this to you all today. The Cohousing Institute is Coho US's new platform that's designed to deliver virtual content in a more organized, interactive, and frankly, enjoyable way. So we have lots of great programming in store for 2023, and we hope that delivering it via the Institute will offer us a chance to connect with one another, share resources, find our dream teams, so that we can all build the co-housing movement. So again, we'll demo that new site. We'll talk a lot about that at the end of today's call, but we're going to start big, talking about the state of our movement and our dreams. Coho US is the convener of the co-housing movement, and we do need your help to continue to do our work. So we ask for your support of new initiatives, such as the Cohousing Institute, as well as programming that illuminates a new American dream. So if you believe that we're onto something with co-housing, help Coho US share it with the rest of the world. We're going to put our donate link in the chat. We hope that you'll consider joining our growing network of monthly donors. So today we've gathered to explore the state of our movement, but what does that really mean? Who are we not, and what are we moving towards? I believe that co-housing is part of a larger movement, and a critical one, towards a more cooperative and connected society. Co-housing is one strategy to achieve more fulfilling lives for ourselves and future generations. It's one tool among the many that will be necessary to save and regenerate our planet. Co-housing, I like to think of as a single thread in a wide tapestry that I call resilience. The mission of Coho US is to support and grow co-housing. It's to help dreamers find fellow dreamers, to educate and empower forming communities, to tell the story of living in community so that more people understand what it is that we're so excited about, and more importantly, can see what's possible for themselves. And our work is so much bigger than just promoting co-housing. It's really restoring a more natural way of being. It's breaking down the barriers that maintain the status quo, that keep us isolated, detached, and hurting. It's supporting aligned models that also seek a more cooperative society, and it's opening our hearts and minds to learn from them. So today, there are about 180 existing co-housing communities in the US, and about the same number in some stage of formation. And there's an ongoing and very important conversation about how the term co-housing is being diluted by misuse in the media and by communities that claim the title but lack the basic tenets of the model. We really want people to recognize co-housing as a model that prioritizes community voice and involvement from inception through its entire life cycle. That's a critical piece. We want the public to know that it's a model that balances privacy and connection, that private homes facilitate individual and nuclear family life, while common spaces encourage connection and care for our neighbors. We want to emphasize the importance of social infrastructure and intentional design. And this accurate portrayal is important because we want people to see themselves in this model, because we know that when it's done with intention and integrity, it works. And there is potential to push at the boundaries of this model in order to create more diversity and affordability. So one example is retrofit and infill communities that can maintain the key components of co-housing while using fewer resources and lowering the barrier to entry. Models like limited equity cooperatives, community land trusts, rent to own, these things can be intersected with tried and true co-housing in order to make it more accessible. We are also facing a dire situation in the number of co-housing oriented professionals. So Katie McCammett, Grace Kim, Brian Bowen are all seeking to build the pipeline of architects, developers, and consultants who understand and believe in co-housing. If we want more communities around the country, we need hundreds of more co-housing professionals. It's critical that we develop and educate a pipeline of diverse, innovative and skilled professionals if we want this movement to survive. So that's where we are. Where do we go from here? What's the future of this movement? In an ideal future, co-housing will be home to some and inspiration to many. If traditional neighborhoods incorporate the values of co-housing and are more connected as a result, we're doing our job. And if housing policy is informed by people's need for human connection, in addition to their need for shelter, then we're also doing our job. If human beings know their neighbors, are engaged in political discourse, and can foster meaningful relationships across political divides, all of which are direct impacts of living in co-housing, then we're doing our job. As Grace Kim says in her address, community is what will sustain the movement over time. Without this intention to foster and nurture community, we're just building buildings, a commodity, a housing product. Because co-housing is not just good for those that live within communities. They should be models for intentional and connected living that can inspire and support all sorts of aligned approaches to life. Because resilience is not a single thread, just as community is not a single person. We're a tapestry and we're stronger together. So today, we will hear from some of the leading experts in the co-housing movement. We've got architects, activists, developers, educators, even those who wrote the book on co-housing. And so I hope that you all leave with a sense of belonging to something that is bigger than yourself and committed to doing what you can to create a more connected, sustainable, and resilient future. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to the co-housing leaders.
My name is Alan Ohashi, and I am president of the board of directors. Over the past 30 years, the Co-Housing Association of the United States has been a leader in co-housing and has also been a convener of the shakers and movers within the co-housing movement. We are pleased to have a diverse group of voices joining us for the State of the Movement virtual keynote event. The Co-Housing Association has become, I think, a leader in terms of how to mitigate loneliness. And I'll say that, again, that housing is housing. And what differentiates co-housing from all the other housing types is the secret sauce. And that has to do with collaboration. That has to do with participation. That has to do with consensus building. That has to do with sharing and caring. In this notion of reinventing and reimagining the American way, Co-Housing Association is making a big push to take on the hard work of diversity and inclusion. And if it's my preference, rather than having diversity and inclusion as an add-on. My goal is to integrate inclusion and diversity into the day-to-day operations of the organization, so that everything that we do is completed through the lens of other people who are different than us, people who think different than us. So it's not really just about how, we look ethnically or racially, but also diversity of thought, diversity of life experiences. Cohousing Association is here to meet the needs of people such as yourself who are thinking about living in a co-housing community or already live in a co-housing community. And the larger message is, one, the Cohousing Association has been instrumental in coming up with ways to be hedges against loneliness. Co-housing communities are places where kids grow up to be healthy and strong. Co-housing communities are the backbone of democracy because we operate in a way to increase civility. And what if everybody in the United States was able to change their lifestyles to be more collaborative?
I'm Lori Frank. I'm on the Coho US board, and I live in the Linden co-housing community in Madison, Wisconsin. My commitment to co-housing runs deep because I'm a communitarian. Most of my career was about building a sense of community in schools to support learning. In short, co-housing fits my way of being and thinking, and I think it can play its part in saving the world. It offers a way to be environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable, and it's simply a more humane way to live. Now, as we all know, on some level, it's one big, huge, enormous exercise in navigating relationships. A healthy community is full of joy and sorrow, gratitude, trust, hurt, hope and discouragement, inspiration, decision-making, anger, laughter, communication, disagreement, love, and so much more. There is, of course, conflict, and it takes persistence, organization, flexibility, and humility, to name just a few attributes, to make it all work. It isn't for the faint of heart. People need to be willing to stretch out of their comfort zones. We have to remember, though, that we carry our cultures with us, and the lessons of the dominant culture are very strong. We all have a lot of baggage to unpack, and we have to be willing to do that. It requires vulnerability. It can feel very risky. And if we want to grow co-housing as a more mainstream option, then we have to help people bridge that gap. Which leads me to a bigger picture. I sense that we're at a crossroads in our development as a movement. And that is the word that continually comes up, movement. What is that? Are we really a movement? And what does it mean for us as we go forward? My point is that I think it's worthwhile to pay attention to it and come to a common understanding of what co-housing is, what it isn't, and where we want to go with it.
I'm Katie McCammett of Cohousing Solutions, and I've been developing and designing co-housing for 35 years. I co-wrote the book that introduced co-housing to the English-speaking world. And I work with people all day, every day to help them build their communities. I'm committed to co-housing because I see it as one of the best examples of how we can live the good life while using less resources. And I personally really enjoyed living in co-housing for most of my adult life. As I see it, there are two things that we need to grow co-housing. First, we're going up against over a century of truly hardcore propaganda for the suburban single-family house. We need to share why our communities are working for us with the larger public, so they can see that working alternatives exist and that we can actually live using fewer resources in a more sustainable way, and that people love living this way. So much thanks to all who post about your life in co-housing on social media and host tours for your communities. Any way we can get the word out is helpful. We need more co-housing professionals. specifically real estate developers, as well as marketing, process, project management, and architectural professionals who see the value in more community-oriented development and will support the development of more communities. That's why I offer my 500 Communities program, to help train the next generation of professionals so we can continue to grow the co-housing market and help other people be able to live the good life while using less resources. You can find out more about the 500 Communities program on my website at cohousing-solutions.com.
My name is Charles Durrett. I, with Katie McCammett, brought co-housing to the U.S. through our first book, Cohousing, A Contemporary Approach to Housing Ourselves. In the beginning, co-housing was in Europe was very much a feminist movement. Early 70s, it was clear that men were going to be cooking dinner as often at home as women, and they wanted to figure out a way to get around it, and women wanted to figure out a way to make all that house stuff more inclusionary. So that's one of the key reasons that co-housing was started, and I believe when it's embraced as a key feminist movement here in the U.S. as well, it will be grow in popularity. In the future, people are going to see the benefits of co-housing for single parents. I mean, it's just crazy. Everybody knows it takes a village to raise a child. Everybody knows that. And yet we continuously try to do it in a box on a street where kids are isolated and estranged from their playmates and all the rest. And you can drive down just about any suburban street in America. Every 12th house, there's some forlorn senior watching TV. Every 10th house, there's some forlorn 10-year-old playing Nintendo by themselves. And we just have to shift that from an antisocial life to a pro-social life. All the books written about healthful senior elderhood, I should say, rely on three concepts: eat right, mostly light; stay active, mostly low impact; and stay connected, i.e. community. And I think that the government, again, will play a bigger role, and that requires getting a few laws changed at the congressional level. I've been working heavily on that. A man named Philip Octanter in Denmark shifted the laws at the Danish national level, and co-housing shifted precipitously at that moment. All of a sudden, thousands of people were eligible to participate in co-housing who couldn't previously participate. Zoning in the U.S. is going to start to take a back seat to doing the right thing. Zoning was created in Berkeley, California in 1916 to keep African Americans and Asiatics out of white neighborhoods. It has been a very classist, racist institution from day one, and I have found that it's not hard to, in fact, change the zoning. I think a third of the projects that I've been working on now and have worked on recently, we have simply changed the zoning.
So my name is Mathilde Berthe, and I'm a co-founder at Studio Cohab, which is an architecture firm that's specialized in sustainable co-housing. And you probably hear my accent. I'm French. Because of my background, I like to look at what's happening in France to inform how we could grow the movement in the US. And so, France has really had the number of co-housing projects explode over the last decade. Last year, we counted 2,070 established communities, 170 under construction, and 450 on their way. And so, the growth has just been exponential since 2014, which is when a law was passed that facilitated development of co-housing. And once you have the law that, is talking about co-housing, then it's a lot easier to go to your mayor, to go to your banker, and have kind of like this legitimacy of what co-housing means and what it is. And so it really helps the movement growing. There is a great opportunity for co-housing to develop where it doesn't have to be all ownership. And so in France, only a third of the co-housing communities are actually owned, and a lot of them are rented or in a co-op type of community. So I think a great challenge right now is obviously we're all aware about the climate crisis that is just getting worse, and we also have a housing crisis. And so really being able to pair affordability and sustainability together is so crucial. Moving forward, I'd love to see more dense co-housing communities. And I know density equal more affordable and more sustainable. And so that's why I'm really excited about seeing more dense communities. In multifamily housing, you use up to 80 times more materials when you build new than when you renovate an existing building. And so I really want to invite any community that is looking at pieces of land right now that might have existing buildings on it to really consider the possibilities and opportunities you can find by retrofitting an existing building. So when we were first asked to talk, and some of the questions were, what are the best practices you want to see developed, continued moving forward? Well, the Institute is really much what I'm really excited about too, because I think it will be a hub where we can stop reinventing the wheel over and over and just share all of this amazing knowledge that we have and amazing background, and have a place where we can all learn from each other and teach to each other. So
the greatest challenge I see that faces us, not only in co-housing, but especially right now in all forms of housing, is affordability. This is a national crisis, exacerbated by self-interest and greed. We're all looking to make as much money as possible, and we're using housing as the vehicle to dramatically increase our wealth. But what if it was okay to make enough money, not the most money possible? What if we stopped thinking of home as commodity, but rather home as community, security, and well-being? We have a tremendous opportunity to innovate, especially in co-housing, where people have a greater sense of the collective, where we purport to have greater social purpose and a stated desire for social equity. What if we could model for the rest of society that there are viable collaborative forms of home ownership? What if we could pioneer ways to internally subsidize home ownership as an act of reparation? What if we were to stop treating renters as second-class citizens and acknowledge that 1/3 of our nation are renters, and that we all share the same values for home as stability, well-being, and community? What if we could develop a replicable and scalable rent-to-own model with very modest down payments? What if we could figure out how to unlock the wealth in someone's single-family home while helping them redevelop the lot to create micro-housing or micro-co-housing communities of 4 to 6 units? And what if we redeveloped a few of these lots contiguously to help elders stay in their community and access their accumulated wealth to sustain them over their latter years, while allowing new families, more families, to access home ownership in these older and more established neighborhoods? This could address both displacement and affordability at once, one lot at a time, and thereby create more affordable co-housing communities. At the end of the day, no matter how we achieve it, the world needs more co-housing, not only for the educated upper middle class white people that currently dominate co-housing today, but also to support hardworking low-income families, for seniors on fixed incomes, for families living far away from home, for foster families, and people with developmental disabilities. These are just some of the people who could benefit from living in co-housing. And there are still many more communities that are being envisioned and planned by the current demographic in co-housing. There is simply a greater need than we're currently able to accommodate now. And in order to make more co-housing happen, we need more professionals, more architects, more developers, more facilitators. There are just too few of us to serve all those who would like to live in community. We currently have 2 developers who are working on multiple co-housing projects around the nation. And in order for us to grow the co-housing movement, we need more like 200 of them. We desperately need to recruit developers who see the potential market and have the vision and capacity to expand the movement. Katie McCammett is modeling this for us with her 500 Communities program. She's helping prepare a new generation of developers, marketers, and co-housing evangelists. I would like to do this for architects. There are currently about 8, maybe 10, if I'm being generous, architectural firms in the nation who have designed co-housing communities and would call themselves co-housing architects. In the next decade, there need to be at least 100, if not 2, more architects doing this work. We need this level of scale in order for us to reach a tipping point with co-housing, to make co-housing more known, more accepted, and more available.
So my name is Caitlin Cameron, and I'm the new project director for Thrive, which is the education arm for EcoVillage at Ithaca. I like to refer to a quote from one of our co-founders, Liz Walker. I think she puts it really well when she says the co-housing model is perfect for what we need in this world, which is more connection. And I think that became even more apparent during the pandemic. And I think my personal journey towards co-housing and living in community came out of a realization of how isolated we can make ourselves in this country, in this world. And it's really getting back to the way we were meant to live. "30 years of development and growth has shown us that we have a lot to share with the community and offer, but I think we've also faced quite a bit of challenges, and some of the challenges we're seeing coming up, of course, can relate to climate change. I think there's renewed interest in doubling down and really paying attention to how we have an impact and what as a community we can do more and better. We have a great foundation in how we've built our community, the practices that we've put in place as a built environment, but there's always more to do around transportation, around equity, around diversity. I think another challenge that our community faces is the opportunity and challenge of aging in place. It is creating a certain imbalance or lack of diversity that we at EcoVillage at Ithaca are examining, and I'm hoping to learn from other communities how to address racial and ethnic diversity, economic diversity, attracting families. Those are all things that we're quite conscious of, and I think it's a topic or a challenge many of our communities are wrestling with.
That idea of belonging. I once did a sermon where I broke the word down and as the longing to be, or that be longing. And I think that that is essential to humanity, that all of us are looking for a place where we can be. And I guess the ideal of co-housing, and I know that from experience, is being able to find a place where you can just be who you are, especially if you come from a marginalized group or a group that's underrepresented in a lot of different contexts. You want the place that you go home to be a place of rest and refuge, and also a place that where you can also lean into your growing edges as well. And the ideal behind co-housing is that there's so much in place in terms of even the physical structure. At least the place where I was, there was the smaller units but we all faced inward toward the common area. We had a common house. We had all these things in common that facilitated community. And that created at least the container or the context for belonging and for engagement. But the challenge is that people don't like to fail. So even when people have an ideal, I think that sometimes when you come to a place with an ideal, you think that if you just show up to the place, then the work will magically happen. And I think that the co-housing communities, as I've experienced them, have the physical plant in terms of being able to facilitate commonality and growth and community and all those other things. But then there's this I think unspoken hope that just by living there, people assume that it'll just happen just because they move there. And that isn't the case. What happens is if you just trust that the space is going to do the work, then people don't end up going as deep as they could. They don't take the opportunities the way that they could, and they don't build the practice. And all of this is a practice. Many of us have these, survival faculties that are part of what have kept us alive as a species that also work against us when we're engaging difference, because that part of our brain that we're not really thinking about, that's running that unconscious tape, is saying difference is a threat, as we've alluded to. And it's still active even when we're in spaces like the co-housing community. But the beautiful thing is, once you're bought into it, you've got literal skin in the game, your body is in that place. If we could leverage those tendencies and really maximize the awareness that we've chosen to be here, that we live here. It's not like I'm just going to walk away and not see these people again. I'm going to run into these people and be in gratitude for the structure. Then how do we leverage this dimension of this structure so that we can move past those survival instincts and things that keep us from engaging?
A simplistic definition of a movement is a group of people working together to advance their shared political, social, or artistic ideas. There's that famous Margaret Mead quote that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. But it can't stop there. We have so many people to thank for getting us here, and now it's time to take the next step and go to the next level together. Now remember this meme? And it said organize on it. Now imagine if all those fishes were different communities coming together. Our world is facing so many troubles. What if co-housing and other community living models became the norm? Moving into Linden caused my chosen family to grow by 74 people overnight. Living at Linden continues to make me a better human being, mainly because it's not all about me. I'm part of something bigger than myself. I want the world to experience this, and it means coming together to create something bigger than ourselves. Eduardo Galeano, an Uruguayan writer and poet, wrote, "Utopia lies at the horizon. When I draw nearer by 2 steps, it retreats 2 steps. If I proceed 10 steps forward, it swiftly slips 10 steps ahead. No matter how far I go, I can never reach it. What then is the purpose of utopia? It is to cause us to advance." I look forward to advancing co-housing with you and continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Wow. I'm sitting over here with chills and just kind of wanting that moment where the audience gets to applaud together. And that's always a loss of virtual gatherings, but just raining gratitude upon our speakers, our leaders from within the movement, those who just give of themselves in every way imaginable to further this vision for a new American dream. So thank you so much. Thank you also for the provocations that you leave us with. There were many questions that were raised. There were ideas for action, and then there are also these questions that we need to be in dialogue about. You know, are we content with being this relatively small part of society, or do we want to grow co-housing into something larger? And if so, how do we do that? This question about, are we a movement, or are we simply just people who like the same thing? And these are questions that we hope that you all will engage with through the Co-Housing Institute. So again, the Institute will help us to bring the same virtual content just like this, where we gather on a platform that we're familiar with, but then the opportunity to have these conversations, to share resources and ideas and questions, and to really engage in this learning process together. So again, we will do more work on the platform here soon. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to our Director of National Programs, Lotus Thomas. Lotus is really the leader of the Co-Housing Institute, and she's going to tell you all about her journey in community as well as how to use the Institute. So I'll turn it over to Lotus.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Lotus Thomas, and as Trish said, I'm the Director of Programs for Coho US. And I've been passionate about community since experiencing loneliness myself as a latchkey kid. And then living in community has actually been essential to my thriving as a single mom starting in my early 20s. I've lived in community for 2 decades, largely as a real estate innovator, developing co-living opportunities for renters. My leadership with nonprofits started in 2000 as a grassroots organizer and fundraiser on issues such as renters' rights, where I found a deep sense of purpose that's fueled my life ever since. There was one night in particular when I was reflecting on how I was being trained by the nonprofits I worked for to polarize our nonprofit or social cause as better than another. And it was as if a lightning bolt penetrated my head. I realized that this divide and conquer mentality from capitalism was infiltrating the nonprofit world. And I crystallized a life purpose to be part of transcending this competition paradigm and supporting a unified positive change movement. I have since been a part of building strategic partnerships and collaborative programs like I'm doing here with Coho US. Now, I have many details to share with you today about what's next for Coho US, but first, I'd like to invite you all to close your eyes. I'd like you to feel into what motivates you to be on this call today, to reflect on the common purpose that brings us all together. As you focus on this, starting to visualize a beacon of light emanating from everyone on this call and everyone working towards shifting to a more cooperative society all over the planet. Imagining a vision of the entire Earth covered in nodes of light, representing all of these humans taking action. Lastly, imagine that right now, we all have an opportunity to connect those nodes of light into a unified force, a force of change, a force of healing, a force of transcending our differences in order to build something bigger than ourselves. Now, when you're ready, opening your eyes, let's talk about how we can realize that vision together. So I want to thank you all for being the early adopters of a more cooperative society and a new American dream, and the early adopters willing to join us for the launching of the Co-Housing Institute during this beta testing phase. The Institute is a platform empowering and educating the co-housing and communities movement, and has tremendous potential to further unify our work in spreading a new American dream. We decided to use the virtual conference as the first prototyping for the Co-Housing Institute so that we could have stakeholders like you use the platform and inform its development. Please keep this in mind as you use the site, knowing that there may be ways of improving the design and functionality that will be developed in the coming months. For now, there are 3 key ways that you can engage with the Institute, and there are many more on the horizon in 2023. So again, we're talking about how we're in beta testing, and there's a link for how you can offer feedback directly on the site. So the first way, which most of you have done, is to register for the site and populate your profile. So I'm just going to show you, when you are registered, there's this place in the upper right hand corner where you can go to your dashboard, and that will take you to your profile, which you can edit. The most important thing to know about this is that it will require a new login than the one that's used at the old site, cohousing.org. So partners, you'll be having 2 logins for the coming beta testing phase. The second way to engage is with what we're calling the Communities Movement Group on the Institute, which right now, you can actually see the link to that here. So this is the Communities Movement Group, and people are asking where you can see the recording from today. It's going to be right here in the Communities Movement Group. So for the time being, it will be offered for free. And there's also this orientation video here that helps you with the basic, more detailed instructions, step-by-step instructions for how you can actually engage in these 3 ways that I'm talking about. So the third way that you can engage is by going to the programs page and checking out the virtual co-housing conference and registering. The virtual co-housing conference is a compilation of 12 sessions from our national conference in Madison, including the keynote by Ann Reynolds on housing for the future, co-housing and cooperatives, as well as all of these other incredible programs focused on the exact impact areas that we heard about: diversity, sustainability, and the relationship side of community. Producing this beta testing for the virtual conference took many months of staff time, and we're asking folks to support this effort by paying the equivalent of $5 per session for this 12-session virtual conference. This registration fee is waived for existing and new partners, in addition to providing access to over 200 additional recordings from past events. That said, if folks are interested in the virtual conference but unable to afford it, we also offer need-based scholarships embodying our commitment to inclusion. More details about all of this can be found on the platform, including the orientation I showed you previously. As a thank you for those of you who joined us today in celebrating this launch, we'd like to offer you a $10 discount if you register for the conference by the end of this week, by Friday. Use the code SHARINGISCARING at checkout and look out for an email that you can forward to others who might want to support this effort. We've heard a lot of reasons from the keynote today about why this institute is important. We heard that what the movement needs to grow is a way to connect, organize, train, and share best practices to innovate and advocate for more and better co-housing. For over 30 years, Coho US has been the leading convener of co-housing leaders and learners, predominantly through in-person conferences. However, the pandemic pushed the organization into the virtual event space with great results all around. We will always continue to offer our trademark conferences for in-person, face-to-face connections, and we've already begun initial planning for 2024. That said, on a fundamental level, virtual events are even more aligned with our values of sustainability and inclusion. They nearly eliminate the carbon footprint of this work while making it easy for us to offer scholarships and otherwise be accessible for folks whose finances or schedules limit them from joining us in person. During COVID, we developed a partnership program that has grown steadily for the last couple of years. In the past year, since I joined the organization, I have been speaking with partners and reading responses they've offered through surveys. And consistently, they all say that the programs we offer are the greatest value. Like I said, with more than 200 sessions currently available on demand at cohousing.org. However, they also said that those programs are incredibly difficult to access with a user interface that is very archaic and hard to find. And people are also wanting more ways to connect with each other. We've also heard that some people are specifically interested in taking action to become champions and advocates in the co-housing movement. The Co-Housing Institute offers a platform that can make all of this happen. In 2023, we will be expanding the new platform to become an organized database of all of the 200 programs partners have access to. Some of these programs will also be available individually for people to purchase who may not be ready to commit to partnership. However, partnership at $150 a year for an individual, or 1/3 of that per person for communities, will provide even more value. In addition to increasing access to the recordings of past programs, we are also developing a whole year of dynamic programming in 2023. And I don't have a lot of time to share about all the amazing programming that's coming, but I do want to just speak to a couple of the things that we're doing. We'll be starting a monthly event in February called The Commons, and we'll have a quarterly virtual keynote featuring movement leaders. These programs will be free for partners and worth more than $150 on their own, not even taking into account the access to the past recordings. In addition to these programs, we'll also be launching an advocacy dimension to the platform, supporting self-organized action groups with forums to stay connected, share resources, access trainings, etc., as Charles and Mathilde emphasized how important it is that we work to change laws in order to see the same kind of growth they've had in Europe. Lastly, we heard from Katie and Grace how crucial training more professionals is. By Grace's estimate, we need to increase the number of developers from 2 to 200 and architects from 10 to 100. As the name Institute implies, Coho US will be partnering with leaders throughout the movement to host ongoing programs and trainings that again will be offered at a discount for our partners. I want to take a minute now to talk about goals and how we can achieve them. I would love for us to have the virtual conference sales cover the staff time and costs that went into developing this beta launch, which would be possible if every person who registered for this event today purchased the virtual conference at the special $50 price we are offering when you use the code sharing is caring by Friday this week. If every one of you shared that invitation with at least 10 of your friends, it's within reason that we could even exceed that goal. Further development of the platform will cost a lot more, so there has never been a more important and exciting time than now to become a financial supporter of Coho US. We are officially a 501c3 organization, so any donations you make are tax deductible and will help us succeed in creating even better programs and ways of organizing this movement. I'll be working on refining the partnership and sponsorship programs in 2023 so that there aren't so many confusing options and so that we create win-win scenarios that make it an obvious choice for individuals, professionals, and communities to invest time and money towards this next phase of expansion for Coho US and the communities movement. I'd love to hear from you if you have ideas about this, and I'm the person to reach out to move forward on becoming a partner or sponsor in 2023. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great holiday season and look out for details in your inbox for next steps. So with that, I'd love to just have you all share how you're feeling right now after this virtual conference launch events, any impacts that have been coming up, and we look forward to seeing you on the platform soon.
Thank you for making it accessible and affordable and all that took. It's very, very hopeful for some of us that are not plugged into that existing community that operates. We're trying to find our way and figure it out. So apparently there's a lot of new people and I'm grateful. I'm sure we all are. Thank you very, very much.
Trish and Lotus, you guys did some amazing heavy lifting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I was really happy meeting everybody and seeing the strength of the movement. I'm interested in the Canadian part and any connection we make there that might be difficult, maybe different because of different legislation or policies. So that's something I'm interested in finding out later.
This is Catherine in Santa Fe, and I'm interested in combining our work with my neighbor who's the head of the Story Foundation, because every one of us has a story for how we came to co-housing, how it changed our lives. And it was hearing those stories and having my own that really brought it home, how not just important this is, but just what a nourishing way to age in place. So I really hope it's more than websites and sessions and trainings, but that there's a personal side to it as well.
Yeah, on that
There-
note, I want to just share that there is functionality on this institute that's sort of like our own co-housing or communities focused social media platform. And it's really only going to be effective if people use it. But what if every time you have an impulse to go use social media or watch a TV show, instead you spend some time on this platform, connecting with other co-housers, sharing your movement. And one of the programs that I'm dreaming into for next year is going to be focused on supporting storytelling, marketing, messaging, media for the co-housing movement. So definitely stay tuned for more about that.
Hi there, Lauren Opler in Toronto. First of all, thank you very much to Lotus and to Trish and to everybody in Co-housing USA. I was just going to follow up on what Michael said. I believe it was Michael. It'd be great if you guys can connect with Canadian Co-housing Association up here, so people up here know about your upcoming conference.
Yeah, we're actually part of a group that's called Community Weavers that includes the Canadian group as well as several other organizations working nationally and globally for communities. And that's a big part of us not just calling it the co-housing movement on the platform, but the communities movement to really start to build
Right.
bridges between our different efforts, 100%.
Great, thank you.
Hello, I'm in Pennsylvania, southeast corner of Pennsylvania. Does your organization have a list of existing co-housing communities? I mean, I'm sure it would be a large list.
That's what we're actually best known for. If you go to cohousing.org, you can see the list of all of the communities in the country.
And also communities forming, is that on that site?
Yes.
What's it called again? Sorry. What's it called?
Cohousing.org.
That's it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, this is Fran in Lexington, Kentucky. I just want to say I'm a kind of a newbie to this in practice and in knowledge. I've known about it for years and I'm excited about it. But it was really so helpful for me just to have those 7 minutes with 3 other people to actually talk to real human beings who are involved in this. Because in my state, there's nothing going on. And I have one friend that's kind of interested but couldn't make it today. So, I mean, there are those of us that are really on the outer edge of this that really appreciate that individual and group real-time conversation. So thank you for including a little bit of that today.
Yeah, and like we talked about, we're going to be having monthly events to do that, at least once a month. That's called the Commons. So stay tuned for that and invite your friends to it. Those of you who have raised your hand, you can just jump in. I see Dagmar. Do you want to go for it? Oh, okay. Kim, did you want to share something?
Oh, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate the ease with which you, whoever is handling the tech part, made it so easy to just register, even though I was late. And I had it saved on my Facebook that I was interested, but I had neglected to register, and I was able to just do it and click right in. And I'm really grateful. It's so inspiring and gives me a lot of hope just to think I can connect. I'm just trying to figure out a way to live in community myself, so I'm pretty new at it. Thanks.
Kirk?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Oh, good. Well, I've heard a lot of people asking about lists of existing co-housing communities, where they can find them and such. I want to mention one thing. Most all existing co-housing communities have waiting lists to get in. Very few of them actually have vacancies. So my suggestion, if you're really serious about getting involved in co-housing, look for a group that's forming a new community. You're much more likely to get in. You're much more likely to get what you want. And I think being in on the ground floor is absolutely the best way to learn about co-housing and watch as it develops and grows.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Kirk. And yeah, for those of you who are new, part of what makes co-housing unique is that the residents actually inform the development and the design. So you actually get to have a say. And that's a really important part of this model. Anne, can we hear from you?
Yes, I'm very excited to learn what is being done legislatively to change some of the laws and how to get involved in that. That was mentioned obliquely, but I'd like to hear more. Thanks.
Thank you, Anne. David?
I thought I had a reaction as first got involved about a generation ago. And it's good to see that things are as alive now as they were then.
Hopefully more so. All right, well, any last comments before we turn off? I do want to just reinforce that there are longer keynotes. So we went through the painstaking process of trying to get that compilation short enough to be able to fit in everything we wanted to cover on today's call. And the speakers each put a lot of love and time into creating their keynotes. And there's even more details, or there's longer keynotes available through the platform for free. So please go check that out. And I didn't make a big deal about the forum. I wish I had said more about that, but that really is going to be the place where we're going to be focusing on having this conversation of sharing best practices in an asynchronous way. So please share your impacts and your thoughts and links to what's going on, and let's start creating more visibility. You know, as we've all been working, we're in this hyper-connected society where we're all on the computer or on our phones all the time. And yet a lot of these efforts are all kind of in their own silos, and we're not sharing the best practices. And we heard from Caitlin about Eco Village at Ithaca, probably one of the best in class eco village co-housing developments in the world, probably. And they're struggling and they're wanting to be more connected with best practices. So it's really, really important that we all take that time to be sharing not just about the solutions, but our challenges too. So we can have that transparency and really walk the talk of embracing that vulnerability that we heard about before. So we're really excited to develop this platform with you all. And unless there's any last comments, I think we'll say.
This is Fran. I just wanted to say this was an awesome hour. I'm so impressed with how you respected our time. There was not a second wasted in this presentation. It was just power packed. So beautiful job. Loved the presentation as well as everything else around it. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a labor of love from our very small team. So it feels really good to receive this appreciation. And yeah, really hope that you'll all consider making an end of year gift for us and also supporting this larger unfolding. So with that, I'll say goodbye to everyone. Have a great holiday. Stay warm, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lotus, very much.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. This was
Aloha,
great.
Lotus. Great work. And you too, Trish. Awesome.
Thank you.